Now, in the US, the trial of Karen Reid has gripped the nation, taking over headlines, dominating discussions, and everybody in Boston has a view. The question on everyone's lips, is this a lover's spat gone wrong or a murder cover-up involving the highest levels of law enforcement? Joining me to talk about it is Larry Donnelly, columnist with TheJournal.ie Law Lecturer in the University of Galway. Larry, good morning.
Good morning, Pat.
Now, can we start off with the narrative, when it happened, and what is not disputed in court?
Well, this relates to a night out with a group of people, of friends and acquaintances in several bars in the Boston area. And they were seemed to be having a great old time, and none of that is disputed. Then some members of the group went back to the home of a then Boston police officer where there was some other unrelated family gathering, and effectively they were told, come back, join in the party, and we'll have a late night. Now, two people who were there at the bars on the night were Karen Reid and her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, who was also a Boston police officer. Now, they were invited back to the house. Now, here is where the disputes all begin. The people who were at the house, the Albert family, again, one of them a Boston police officer, others of them in law enforcement and in local politics, they maintain that John O'Keefe and Karen Reid never came to that house. And that what happened was that Karen Reid, who was involved in a spat with her boyfriend, ran him over in the driveway of the house and left him there to die in the cold. The defense has a different theory of the case. The defense maintains that Karen Reid dropped John O'Keefe at the house, but that at the house, John O'Keefe was set upon by members of the Albert family as well as the family dog, and then left outside to die overnight. So we have two diametrically opposed, I suppose, theories of what happened on the night.
Okay, now what Karen Reid maintains is that she dropped him off at the party and she said, I'll go home to our place, you enjoy yourself at the party, or perhaps they had a row and she said, well, I'm going home, you can drink some more if you want to, but I'm off. And then she didn't react until the next morning. She realizes he's not home, the bed is empty, the other half of the bed or whatever, and then she recruits a couple of other women to help her find him.
That's right, including members of the McCabe family who were married into the Albert family. And they then went back to the house where they discovered at around 6 a.m., they discovered John O'Keefe's body. And then things again descend into conflict between Karen Reid's defense and the prosecution. Karen Reid, originally, Jennifer McCabe, again married into the Albert family, said, Karen Reid said, oh my God, did I hit him, when she saw her boyfriend's body on the ground. That later changed into, I hit him, I did it. And so there's a factual dispute as to what happened. The other element here, Pat, that's really crucial is that this woman, Jennifer McCabe, again, who was married into the Albert family, there was a Google search that was made, and the timing here is really crucial. The Google search was, how long does it take a body to die in the cold? Now, the defense says that search was actually entered in at 2:23 a.m. However, the prosecution alleges that due to a glitch in the phone and the searching, that only actually happened after 6 a.m., after they discovered John O'Keefe's lifeless body in the snow. So again, there's a real fundamental difference here between the prosecution and the defense case.
But why would anyone want to know such a thing if there wasn't something odd going on? Doesn't matter what time you actually Google that search. I mean, if you whack someone with your SUV and then you search at that moment, I can leave him here, how long will it take him to die? Or whether before going to look for him or after you found him, how long was he dead? Because, one could be saying, could we have saved him if we got up earlier? And the other is saying, if I leave him here, what are the prospects that he'll die?
Absolutely, Pat. And this is what the defense is banking on here. An awful lot of things just don't add up in terms of what the prosecution is saying and what the Albert family maintains. Why would that search have been performed at that hour? It just doesn't make sense when they knew already that John O'Keefe was dead. I mean, a search to that effect is not going to bring him back. I should also add that Brian Albert, the owner of the home, was then a Boston police officer. Now, after this all happened, number one, he retired as a Boston police officer. Number two, he sold the house where all of this happened. Number three, he got rid of the dog, which again, the defense alleges, and there are some injuries on John O'Keefe's body to suggest that are consistent with dog bites. And number four, there were a number of text messages going back and forth between members of the Albert family and law enforcement officials, all of which were either deleted and or phones disposed of. So the defense has done a really good job at creating reasonable doubt. The one thing that the prosecution is really leaning on in this case is that there is indisputable evidence that at 12:45 a.m., Karen Reed's SUV went backwards at a rate of 24 miles an hour, which is a considerable rate of speed, in a driveway, and on her bursted taillight, there is the DNA of John O'Keefe.
Yeah. Now, one of the arguments about this, they found some glass from the taillight in the garden eventually, but it seems it wasn't discovered initially after the death of John O'Keefe in the garden. They obviously looked for everything, didn't find it, and then a couple of days later, lo and behold, there's glass from the taillight.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's another layer of complexity, and there's lots of layers of complexity to this, is that another point the defense has made is that the investigating officer, a state police officer named Michael Proctor, was actually also closely associated with the Albert family. And indeed, at the relevant times, there were 67 mobile phone calls made between the Albert family and a close relation of Michael Proctor. It should also be said that Michael Proctor, and this is all on the record, these are all facts, this is not conjecture, has called Karen Reed the most vile of names throughout the process, has wished ill upon her, and has said effectively looking through her phones for nudes. So there's all sorts of things about this case that absolutely stink. And this is why the FBI has actually launched an independent investigation of the conduct of local law enforcement in this whole affair.
Yeah. It's important to point out that John O'Keefe is one of their own, whereas Karen Reed did not work in law enforcement.
That's right. But there is, again, there is more conjecture that John O'Keefe had a strained relationship with the Albert family, and in particular with a nephew of Brian Albert, a teenager named Colin Albert, with whom John O'Keefe allegedly had some very nasty and negative exchanges. And one of the theories of the defense case is that Colin Albert was among the instigators of the fight that they allege took place in the basement, and they pointed to marks on Colin Albert's hands, et cetera, in the wake of the incident that night to bolster their theory. So, Pat, what we really have here are two very conflicting theories involving law enforcement, involving potentially a scandal of epic proportions in the Boston area. It's like something out of a Dennis Lehane book.
How divided is Boston on this one? I mean, is it 50-50, Karen Reed is innocent, free Karen Reed, or, lock her up?
At this stage, my suspicion is the majority of people are with Karen Reed. Either that is they are devout Karen Reed supporters, or because of what is an instinctive, feeling among people in the Boston area that law enforcement corruption is endemic. And indeed, given all that we've been through, why wouldn't you feel that way? That they feel that the defense has done enough here to create reasonable doubt as to Karen Reid's guilt or innocence. Those standing adamantly by her guilt in the side of the prosecution, they're really kind of Albert family loyalists, and I think also some people, and I think this is entirely reasonable, some people really hope that John O'Keefe, who was by all accounts a really good guy, they hope that he can finally rest in peace, and they're inclined to go along with the theory that, look, this was a hit and run, and the rest of this is a smokescreen that's been precipitated by some very, very skilled defense lawyers.
And do we know whether Karen Reid had been drinking that night? Whether it's possible that she could have whacked into John O'Keefe, her partner in life, and hit him with, SUVs are big things. You mightn't feel if it ran into some soft tissue, i.e. John O'Keefe.
Yeah, you're getting to the nub of the matter, and this is my own view of the case, Pat, is that what this has unearthed, and this has been covered and opined about sort of relentlessly, is that everyone who was involved, literally everyone who was involved on the night was loaded, including Karen Reid. And it should be noted that they were all driving around with impunity on a night where there was snow, where the conditions weren't great, which is extremely dangerous. So I think to some extent, all of what happened that night is blurred by, the fact that they were all completely drunk. So I'm not so sure everyone knows exactly what happened on the night. Such was the level of alcohol consumption that went on.
It's entirely possible that both sides of the argument have a little bit of truth on their side. For example, if John O'Keefe was hit by the car, lies bleeding on the ground, a dog comes out, gets the sniff of blood, and responds inappropriately to a man he doesn't know particularly, and bites him and so on. And then the Albert family come out and they say, oh my God, look what's after happening. The dog is after biting our pal. So it's possible that a bit of truth on both sides.
That's entirely possible, Pat. And the range of things that are entirely possible in this case is what makes it so absolutely fascinating, and the level of turns and twists this has already taken. It is what makes it so fascinating. The one thing I have to say I find really troubling in terms of the Albert's account of things is that multiple people left the house between 12:45 when it's alleged that Albert was struck by the SUV. Multiple people left the house between that time and 6 a.m. And the fact that none of them either saw or bothered with John O'Keefe's body lying on the ground in the driveway when they all were driving, I find that very, very difficult to believe.
Yeah, and also, had it been summer and someone is lying in the garden, hammered, obviously, because he had a glass in his hand as well, it would appear, a glass that he took from the bar, you might leave him alone. But in the middle of winter with snow on the ground, you wouldn't leave anybody there because of the risk of exposure. Anyway, the jury hasn't got it yet, I presume. How long before the jury deliberates?
Well, the judge has said that this case is going to go to the jury by the end of this month. The prosecution is nearing the end of its arguments. Defense says it's going to take 4 or 5 days for it to go through its witness list. So it will probably be the beginning of July. Now, how long the jury takes with this is going to be fascinating, and what they've made of things. And we also know that at least one juror has been excused because of potential prejudice against Karen Reid, who's a very polarizing figure in her own right. So this is going to travel on, and God knows, whatever the verdict is, the implications of this trial, are immeasurable at many levels. In the FBI investigation that transpires afterwards will also be fascinating. And again, just to repeat, it's like something we see in the movies about Boston that we've all watched. It literally is true life is stranger than fiction.